Hey, Ron here from Military Images Magazine. Thanks for joining me on a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Today, I'm working on a story that includes a section of photographs of Kentucky guerrilla fighters for the next issue of the magazine. One of the images is here. He's Champ Ferguson, the well-known figure who terrorized parts of Kentucky and Tennessee during the Civil War, the latter part of the war. He was eventually captured, tried, and hung for a number of wartime killings. In researching Ferguson's death and the various details around his trial, which is something I normally would do because I need to write a caption to go with the photograph, I discovered the October 29th, 1865 issue of the New York Times. The Times published or reprinted a story from the Nashville Dispatch with intriguing details. In fact, more or less the last interview with Champ Ferguson before he was hung. I want to read you the top of the story. Quote, "It will be remembered by our readers that during the trial of Ferguson, we were granted the privilege of holding interviews with him and published a lengthy statement on one occasion. We withheld many developments at that time, which we knew would be prejudicial to his trial. It was Champ Ferguson's expressed desire that the local editor of the Dispatch should receive his confession, and he frequently said to us during the progress of the trial, if it went adverse to him, he would tell us all, to use his own words. On Wednesday afternoon, we visited the penitentiary in company with Lieutenant A.M. Coddington." What? That last line stopped me in my tracks. I looked amazed at the computer screen at my last name, Coddington, Lieutenant A.M. Coddington. I got to tell you, I was shocked. I think I yelled out loud because I was so excited. Truth is, I did not know of this Coddington connection to Champ Ferguson's trial and hanging. I didn't even know of A.M. Coddington and that he was even a soldier in the Civil War. So my excitement was even doubled when I saw this. Of course, I needed to sort of move away from my current project and find out more about Lieutenant A.M. Coddington. Pretty easy to find his information using my research databases. He is Almarion Morrow Coddington. The two of us share common ancestors that go back to colonial times and into the 18th century. Almarion's father, Isaac Coddington, moved from New Jersey, where I was born, to Ohio. So that New Jersey connection is what binds Almarion and I together. Almarion was born in Ohio in 1836. In 1862, the second summer of the war, Almarion enlists in the 79th Ohio Infantry, where he advances from private to sergeant. He doesn't stay with the 79th all that long. In December of 1863, he receives a discharge to accept an officer's position as a first lieutenant in the 15th U.S. Colored Infantry. That regiment eventually winds up being stationed in Nashville, where Coddington performs a number of duties as part of his job as a company officer. And one of them, probably one of the most unusual and high profile, is this cameo to escort the editor of the Dispatch to visit Champ Ferguson in his prison cell before the hanging. Now, I want to take you back to the story and read a little bit more to give you some context. On Wednesday afternoon, so the quote goes, we visited the penitentiary in company with Lieutenant A.M. Coddington. On entering the prison through the massive iron doors, we found Champ sitting by the stove in the hall or chamber which surrounds the cells. He was permitted to go out of the dungeon with a ball and chain. Champ met us in a very pleasant manner and after conversing a few moments on important matters, we retired to his cell. He appeared very anxious about his family and had some fears about their not getting here in time to see him. He was expecting them hourly. Now I'm going to stop the story here to add a little bit of context. The story, at least this part of the story, doesn't mention whether or not Lieutenant Coddington stayed behind after his escort duties or if he left. I have no idea. So it's a bit intriguing as the editor and Champ Ferguson started to have this rather long interview, which is recorded in the newspaper article. I have no idea whether Coddington stayed. Did he happen to be close by within earshot and listen to the conversation? Or did he move away, perhaps to the outside of the prison to await the editor after the interview was complete? We may never know, but there may be some information out there that tells us that's still a mystery yet to be resolved. Now, I want to take you back to the interview. He goes on and Ferguson more or less confesses to a number of killings and provides details and information, acknowledges his deeds. He also goes on to tell the editor that he doesn't believe the trial was fair. And towards the end of the interview, he says these words are transferred by the editor as part of the interview that gives you a sense of the nature of Ferguson and how unrepentant he is and how ready he is to die. He says, quote, "I was a Southern man at the start. I am yet and will die a rebel. I believe I was right in all I did. I don't think I'd done anything wrong at any time. I committed my deeds in a cool and deliberate manner. I killed a good many men, of course. I don't deny that, but never killed a man whom I did not know was seeking my life. It is false that I never took any prisoners. I have taken a great many, and after keeping them a while, paroled them." As you know, Ferguson was hanged on October 20th, 1865, not long after granting this interview to the Nashville Dispatch editor with my ancestor, A.M. Coddington, somewhere in the vicinity. Lieutenant Coddington, Almarion, survived the war, remained in uniform until 1866, when he and his comrades in the 15th U.S. Colored Infantry mustered out of the service. Coddington lived until 1896, 31 years after Champ Ferguson's hanging. By the way, Coddington's an interesting side story here. Coddington lived in the town of Bland, New Mexico, when he died. He had moved out west at some point after the war. Bland became a ghost town, and what remained of it was destroyed in the 2011 Las Conchas wildfire. Coddington's gravesite is currently unknown and assumed destroyed in that fire. So that's it for today. Until we meet again, happy trails.